My stepson's best friend stayed the night. What he did at 2 a.m. shocked me. Today I have a story that still sends chills down my spine whenever I think about it. It all began as an ordinary night. My stepson's best friend was staying over something that had happened many times before, but what I saw at 2 a.m., that changed everything. I wasn't prepared for it, and I doubt you will be either. If you think you know how this ends, trust me, you don't. Keep watching. Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts and comments, and subscribe for more amazing stories. He was always polite, quiet, and respectful, the kind of boy any mother would trust around her home. My stepson's best friend had stayed over many times before, but that night felt different. Maybe it was the way he looked at me during dinner, or maybe it was how he lingered near the kitchen waiting for everyone else to go to bed. At 2:00 a.m., I heard the faint sound of footsteps in the hallway. I thought someone needed water, but when I stepped out, what happened next left me frozen. I never imagined that night would change everything. It was a Friday evening, and the house smelled of garlic bread and roasted chicken, my usual go-to when my stepson had friends over. His best friend Aiden had been visiting our house for years. Ever since he and Ryan became close in middle school, I had seen him grow from a skinny, awkward boy into a tall, confident young man. He had one of those smiles, calm but deep, the kind that made you wonder what thoughts were hiding behind it. I was setting the table when the doorbell rang. Ryan answered, and in walked Aiden, carrying his overnight bag in that usual boyish grin. "Hey, Mrs. L," he said, his voice a little deeper than I remembered. "Smells amazing in here. You always say that." I laughed, brushing my hands off on a towel. "Either I am a great cook or you boys are always starving." "Both," he replied with a wink. That wink, it felt off. Not inappropriate, but different, like it carried more than the usual friendly charm. Dinner was lively. The boys talked about college applications, workouts, funny moments from school, and a bit about girls. I mostly listened, smiling at their banter, occasionally chiming in when they needed a referee for their mock debates. Aiden looked at me a few times during the conversation, not in a disrespectful way, but observant, like he was paying attention to me, not just what I was saying. After dinner, they took their plates to the sink, and I insisted they go relax. I stayed behind to load the dishwasher, wiping down the counters and humming softly to myself. It was in those quiet moments that I sometimes forgot how much had changed in my life, raising a stepson, managing a house alone, and quietly dealing with the loneliness that lingered when the doors closed for the night. Around 10 p.m., the boys were in the living room playing video games. I walked by with folded laundry and noticed Aiden watching me as I passed, not staring but aware. His eyes followed me for a brief second before flicking back to the screen. Again, something about it made my heart beat just a touch faster. By midnight, I was in bed reading a book I had started weeks ago but never finished. The house was quiet now, except for the occasional floorboard creak or the soft hum of the air conditioner. I turned off the lights around 12:30 a.m., tired but oddly restless, and then at 2:10 a.m. I heard the soft sound of a door. I sat up. Not the front door. I would have recognized that, but one from the hallway. I thought maybe Ryan needed something, so I slipped out of bed and pulled on my robe. The light from the hallway spilled softly under my door. As I stepped out, what I saw made me stop. Aiden stood there barefoot, his hand hesitating near the kitchen light switch. He froze when he saw me, and I could tell he had not expected anyone else to be awake. "Could not sleep," he said, scratching the back of his neck, his voice a whisper. "Neither could I," I replied, moving toward the kitchen slowly. "Late night hunger." He nodded. "Just water and maybe a little conversation, if that is okay." There was something genuine in his voice, a kind of vulnerability that made me lower my guard. I walked with him to the kitchen, both of us moving quietly, aware of the sleeping house around us. He poured 2 glasses of water and handed me one. We stood in silence for a moment, sipping slowly, the kitchen dimly lit from the stove light. "You seem tired," he said suddenly. "I guess I am," I replied, resting my hand on the counter. "It has been a long week taking care of everyone," he said softly. "But who takes care of you?" The question hung in the air longer than it should have. It was too mature, too perceptive for someone his age. I was not prepared for it. "I manage," I said, trying to smile. He stepped a little closer. Not inappropriately, but enough for me to feel the shift in the air. "You always seem so strong," he added, eyes searching mine. "But strength can be lonely." I swallowed hard, the glass now cool in my hand. There was again that gaze, that presence, and I was no longer sure who was comforting whom. I stood there in the dim light, suddenly aware of how quiet everything had become. The walls of the house, which usually echoed with laughter or footsteps, seemed to be holding their breath, just like me. Aiden's eyes stayed on mine, steady, thoughtful, and something else I could not quite name. I tried to step away, but I moved too fast and bumped into the corner of the counter. Aiden reached out instinctively, steadying me by the elbow. His fingers were warm, his touch gentle. "Sorry," I said, quietly flustered. "Guess I am more tired than I thought." "You do not have to pretend with me," he said, voice low but clear. "You do not always have to be the strong one." The words, so simple, hit a part of me that had been aching in silence for a long time. I had not heard them from anyone in years. My ex-husband, my friends, even Ryan. No one really saw how much I cared alone. I was always the dependable one, the caretaker, the responsible mother figure who made sure everything stayed in place. But in that moment, I did not feel like a mother. I did not feel like someone older, wiser, or composed. It is felt noticed. He did not let go of my arm right away, and I did not pull it back. I laughed awkwardly. "You are saying all the right things for a young man." "I am not a boy anymore," he said gently. You know that there was a silence after that. I could hear the hum of the fridge, the slow drip from the sink. He was still holding my arm. His thumb brushed lightly over my skin, barely noticeable, but I felt it like a spark. It was nothing, and yet it was everything. "I should get back to bed," I said, my voice barely audible. "You could?" he said, stepping just slightly closer. "But do you want to?" I looked up at him, then really looked. His face was open, sincere. He was not being cocky, he was not pushing, he was asking. Something inside me trembled. Not from fear, but from recognition. I had been seen before in different times, different lives, but not like this. Not through the eyes of someone who admired me, not for what I had done for others, but simply for who I was, standing barefoot in a robe in the middle of the night. I could feel the moment shifting slowly, like the tide pulling back before the waves returned. "I do not know what this is," I whispered, my voice trembling. "You are my stepson's friend. You are young. It is confusing. It is only confusing if we try to label it." He said, "I am not asking for anything. I just want to be here with you right now." I exhaled slowly. I had spent so long denying my own needs, pushing my feelings into the background to take care of everyone else. I forgot what it felt like to be held without being needed, desired, without being demanded. My hand almost unconsciously moved to rest against his chest. His heartbeat was calm, steady. He was so close now I could smell the faint scent of his cologne. Fresh, subtle, unpretentious. He leaned in slowly, pausing just inches from my face, waiting. There was no pressure, no urgency, just a question written across his expression. "Can I answered, not with words but by closing the space between us. The kiss was soft at first, unsure. His lips moved gently, like he was afraid I would change my mind, but I did not. I kissed him back slowly, allowing myself to feel every second of it. His hands slid around my waist, careful, warm. Mine found their way to his shoulders, surprised at how solid and safe they felt. It was not just physical, there was something deeply emotional about it. As if this kiss carried all the unspoken loneliness I had buried, all the silent admiration he had stored away. We pulled back for a breath, eyes still locked. "I do not know where this leads," I said, voice shaking, "but I do not want to stop feeling this." "Then let me stay," he said softly. We moved together through the kitchen toward the living room couch. Every step felt surreal, like walking through a dream I never allowed myself to have. The couch was small, but we made space. He sat down first, then gently pulled me toward him. Our lips met again, deeper this time, more certain. My fingers ran through his hair as he traced the curve of my shoulder. The robe loosened slightly, and I did not stop it. I had never felt more seen, not just for my body, but for the woman I was beneath the layers of routine and responsibility. There was no rush, no frantic urgency. Every touch was a question, and every answer was given through a breath, a sigh, a heartbeat. His hands explored gently, learning me, respecting me. I responded in kind, letting myself be open, vulnerable, even a little scared because that made it real. We stayed like that for what felt like hours. Bodies close, whispers, soft emotions louder than any words we could say. It was not just about desire, it was about connection, the aching human need to be felt understood and embraced fully. Eventually, we fell into a quiet stillness wrapped in a shared warmth. I lay with my head against his chest, eyes closed, listening to the rhythm of his breath. He stroked my back gently, neither of us speaking, both knowing that what had just happened was not just a moment. It was a shift. I was not foolish. I knew the world outside would judge, that questions would come, complications would follow. But in that hour, in that sacred sliver of night, I chose not to care. I chose to be present, to feel, and for the first time in years, I felt whole. When I woke up the next morning, the sun had already painted the sky with warm gold and soft blue. The house was silent again, but this time it was not comforting. The silence felt heavy, like the calm before a storm. I turned to see the space beside me on the couch was empty. Aiden was gone. For a second I thought maybe it had all been a dream, a vivid, impossible dream born from loneliness and late-night vulnerability. But then I saw the folded blanket on the edge of the couch. Neat. Intentional. Boo. I sat up, wrapped the robe tightly around myself, and stared at the floor. My heart was beating too loudly. Not from excitement anymore, but from fear. What had I done? Everything from last night came flooding back. The way he touched me, the way I allowed myself to be touched, the way it felt to be seen, desired, wanted, not just as someone's mother or ex-wife, but as a woman. But now, what was I supposed to do with that? I went into the kitchen and found a note on the counter in Aiden's handwriting. Just 3 words. Talk to me. No explanation, no guilt, just quiet understanding. I should have felt relief, but all I felt was panic. Because Ryan, my stepson, was still asleep upstairs. And Aiden, his best friend, had just crossed a line no one would understand, let alone forgive. How could I face my son? How could I face myself? I was not naive. I knew what people would say. They would not care about how lonely I had felt. They would not care about how gentle and honest Aiden had been. They would only see the age gap, the betrayal, the shame. I stood at the sink, hands trembling, as I rinsed a cup I did not remember using. The cold water against my skin felt grounding, like it was trying to pull me back to the version of myself that existed yesterday before everything changed. A quiet knock interrupted my thoughts. I turned startled and saw Aiden at the back door. He did not let himself in. He waited, respectful, uncertain. For a long second, I just stared at him. His eyes searched mine, full of something tender. He was not here to hide. He was here to face it. I opened the door slowly. He stepped inside, hands in his pockets. I left early. He said softly, because I did not want Ryan to see me on the couch and ask questions you were not ready to answer. I nodded. Thank you. He hesitated. Are you okay? I wanted to say yes. I wanted to pretend it was nothing, that we had just gotten caught up in the moment, that it would never happen again, but the truth was messier than that. It always is. I do not know, I whispered. I am scared. Me too, he said. But not about what happened. I am scared of what you will do with it, if you will pretend it meant nothing. That hit hard because part of me had already started doing that. Folding it up like a mistake and tucking it away in some dark corner of my mind, but I could not lie, not to him, not to myself. It did mean something, I said, but I have responsibilities, Aiden, a reputation, a son. I know, he said, and I would never do anything to hurt you, Orion, but I cannot stand here and pretend that what I felt last night was wrong. His voice cracked a little on that last word. Wrong. I felt the weight of it settle between us. "I do not want to lose your respect," I said, "and I do not want Ryan to think I betrayed him. You are his best friend and you are not just his mom. He said you are your own person too. You deserve happiness even if it does not fit into a neat little box." It was the kindest truth I had heard in years, but it was still complicated. I walked past him slowly, needing space, needing to think. I stood at the living room window, watching the leaves shift in the morning breeze. "I do not regret last night," I said finally. "But I need time to figure out what it means to figure out how to be honest without destroying everything." Aiden walked toward me carefully, like he understood that this version of me was fragile. He stood beside me close, but not touching. "I will wait," he said, "for as long as you need." We stood there in silence. Side by side, two people caught between what they wanted and what they feared. And somehow, in that silence, the tension did not break us. It deepened the connection, because sometimes the most intimate thing is not the kiss, not the touch, not the night you share, but the morning after when you choose to face it together. The days that followed were quiet, almost too quiet. Aiden respected the space I needed. He did not call, did not text. He just waited like he promised. Ryan never suspected a thing. To him it was just another weekend visit from his friend, nothing more. But I could not ignore what had changed inside me. The reflection I had avoided for years now stared back with unfamiliar softness. I was not ashamed of what happened. I was terrified of how honest it made me feel about my loneliness, my desire, my worth. One afternoon I saw Aiden again. We met by chance at the grocery store. No words were exchanged at first, just a look. And in that look, everything returned. The warmth, the understanding, the connection that went deeper than the night we shared. "I am still here," he said quietly, gently, and I believed him. Later, alone in my kitchen, the same kitchen where it all began, I realized something. Life does not hand us perfect timing or simple answers, but sometimes it gives us a moment to choose ourselves. I do not know where this path will lead. Maybe nowhere. Maybe somewhere I never imagined. But for the first time in years, I feel awake. Loved even not just by him, but by the version of me that dared to say yes to more. So now you've heard it, what happened at 2 a.m. wasn't just shocking. It changed the way I see my stepson's best friend forever. Was it a moment of innocence misunderstood, or a hidden motive finally revealed? Some say I overreacted. Others say I didn't go far enough. But one thing's for sure, when trust is shaken in your own home, you start questioning everything. Do you think I handled the situation the right way, or did I miss something deeper beneath the surface? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, especially if you've ever faced something similar. Follow me so I have more motivation to create even better videos, or just hit the number 1 to show me a little support.